discussing about a VM, right? So we have, let's first of all, this is actually a different VM. Okay. What is actually, this is right only. Okay, so we have our VM ready. So inside, let's say when you want to connect to a VM, so these are the options that you see usually. So RDP, if it's Windows VM, you will most likely RDP to it. If it's Linux VM, you will SSH to it. And so when you want to RDP, you will simply click on it, and your RDP file will be downloaded. This will have this IP configured with this port number. So once like it's something like this, it downloads, then you connect it using this. So this is one way of connecting to it. So now I will show you another way of connecting to it is Bastion. So when you say Bastion, you have to first create a Bastion. So let's configure this. So to create a Bastion, it actually will create one. What do you say? Uh, this one Bastion subnet inside your VNet. So let's create this. So it will take some time actually to create this. Yeah. I'm going with the default configuration options. This might take some time. We will leave it while this is creating, but I'll show you some of other options that we have in Azure. Okay, so
Uday,
yeah,
I have a question.
yes,
So,
yes.
talking about this Bastion, is it only one for all VMs, or will have every individual Bastion instance for everything?
One for all VMs. So one Bastion you can use for all VMs in same VNet. So let's say this is your network. Okay, your VNet is this. So in this VNet, this Bastion will be created. So any VMs in this VNet, you can use this Bastion. If you're having a VM out of this VNet, let's say in some other VNet, you might need another
Okay.
Bastion. Either you might need another
Okay.
Bastion, or you can actually work out in a different way by actually configuring VNet to VNet peering also. That is also possible with a single Bastion itself. Even if you want to connect outside your network, this
Yeah, like
so
multiple VNets with a
yeah,
single Bastion.
multiple
Okay.
VNets with single Bastion is also possible, provided you have to do a VNet to VNet peering. That concept will
Okay.
come later. I think next weekend will come
Okay.
that concept. So
Okay.
while this is connecting, so your VM, you have option to actually configure this with Windows Admin Center. I hope you are aware of this. This is the latest one. not latest to future. 2 years ago this has come. So you can even manage your VM using Windows Admin Center as well. Let's say if you want to do this, all you can do, let's enable this. I mean, we'll see how it actually progresses. This is something I also do not have not tried much, but we can see this. I'll show you how actually it looks like. And always, this is where you see disk. If you want to add a new disk, you can add a new disk. And so this is how it looks like. There is something called host caching. This is an important topic. This caching is actually important topic in the sense only troubleshoot, whoever actually does a L2 L3 troubleshooting, they might know. So otherwise, most of the times you will overlook at this and you will not think much about it. So host caching is nothing but let's say you have some hardware. Let's say, why is this? So let's say you have some hardware. I think, yeah, let's say you have some hardware. 1 second, I'll try to bring up one nice article, which actually about host caching. Yeah. So for the first time, I found it pretty fast. Okay. So typically, how actually it looks like is your host caching will, yeah, sit like this. So on a physical hardware, so let's say you have one VM, and this VM is coming from some physical hardware. And this physical hardware, then you will have your disks will be connected to your storage cluster. Those clusters, the setup will come from physical hardware only, right? So you will insert those fiber channels to physical hardware only. Then your VM will actually make use of them. So that is how actually ideally it works, right? But this host caching is kind of a memory, RAM, not exactly a RAM, but it actually stores some cache information in the memory. So what happens is, let's say you're writing something for the first time on a VM, and then what does it do when you're writing? If host caching enabled for read write or read only, read write for read write. So then it will first write here in host caching, then it will send that to disk. So it will maintain this cache, and next, let's say when the VM is requesting the same data to read, then it will directly provide the data. Of course, there will be some expiry time and other stuff, but this will directly provide the data here. And if this host caching doesn't have the data, then it will go and fetch from here and will keep it here as a cache again. Will hand it over to this. So this will actually improve the performance. So host caching, that is how the host caching works. So when you're if you enable write host caching, there is only three types: none, which means no host caching in place, and read only means, so every time when you want to read something, you don't have a write provision. When you want to read something, if this doesn't have, it will get from here and it will keep that cache and it will hand it over to, it will send it back to OEM. Next time if you send a request to fetch the same data, and directly it will you will be able to read it from here instead of going back there. So that is a read only. When you say read write, so read is something you already understood. Write is something when you're writing something, and it will go ahead and write here first, and from here it will send back to your data disk. So that is how it works. Read write, so write operation. So here you can see the write operation. So read response, first it reaches here. If this doesn't have, go there, get the information, keep it as a cache, and send the response back to VM. So this way it will improve the performance. Okay, so let's go back to slides. So here the recommendation, the best practice is you can have always you have a read write host caching on a OS disk, and then have either none or read only host caching on data disks. Never go with a read write on a data disk, because the reason being it is very simple reason. Uh, Reason being, let's say you are writing some, let's say this, consider this situation. You are writing some data, this data is stored here, and then this is actually being sent here. So when you're writing this data, during this process, if your host hardware failure happens, so most probably if you attach a data disk, on data disk you will configure application. So your application will have some data. So we are actually dealing with that data, right? So when you write some data, it will maintain some cache and then it will send this data to here. So in during this process, if your host failure happens and your host cache cannot send this data to data disk, then your application, your customer application will lose this particular data, whatever he's actually wrote. So that is actually a because of that reason we don't suggest, that is best practice is not to enable read write host caching on data disk. On data disk all you can go is read only. So read only will not cause any impact because you are only reading the data, so the data is already available in disk, right? So that doesn't cause any problem. Whereas OS disk you can go with read and write, because if OS disk is down, of course everything is down. So there we suggest to go with the read and write. That's the idea. Uh, and another thing, Mahesh, you asked like, how do we actually implement a replication strategy? So let's say I have this Windows VM. Okay, what you can do simply, there is a future like you can either take there is something called swap OS disk. You can create a disk. Let's say you can create a VM and then take a snapshot of it and then create another disk, swap the disk with another VM, or swap the disk with this itself. Directly you can swap. Which is nothing but you're removing your OS disk and you're reattaching some other OS disk in place of it. So that is actually swapping OS disk. Let's say if you want to configure some replication strategy in that fashion, so then what do? You actually configure a VM and then you generalize it first of all. Then you actually take a snapshot of OS disk. Generalizing is nothing but you do a sysprip. Sysprip is nothing but which will remove the user ID, other configuration stuff, normal computer name, those stuff. So you'll remove the sysprip, you'll run the sysprip and you'll generalize it. Then you'll take a snapshot of OS disk. That snapshot you can use it anywhere. So you can either directly you can create two disks, you can swap with the other VMs. So that is one way around, but multiple ways that you can actually approach to achieve the replication strategy. So that's it. And coming to extensions, so extensions are actually nothing but they are kind of a plugins for an application, or a very they are actually packages that are actually not executable files. They will run kind of a packages that will be installed inside a VM. So where kind of a most likely configuration stuff. But each extension will have a separate service. Not all extensions will have services, but a few like guest agent. Guest agent is actually normal agent. No, these extensions doesn't have any services. They will only have some configuration. This configuration will push to guest OS, and using this configuration only, you actually manage couple of things like backup and monitoring, disaster recovery, boot diagnostics. So these are things actually will use this backup. So here we have enabled that admin center, right? This admin center, when we enable it, let's try to connect to it. Let's see what happens. Okay, it is asking me to give the credentials. Mhm. So this is how you can manage your VM directly from portal in admin center. Instead of logging into it, you'll get all the details from here itself. This is another advantage you get in Azure VM. Of course, you can connect your on-prem also, but this way is different. So you directly go to portal, and without having a public IP also, you'll be able to get all the details from here. So this is another way around. And extensions, I was talking about extensions, right? So when you enable this admin center, so we have the VM open, right? Inside a VM, I will show you where exactly the configuration will be stored. We go to C drive. There is a folder called Windows Azure. Inside Windows Azure, you will see packages. Not these. 1 second. These are packages. I'm sorry. So in plugins, so here you will see So this Windows Admin Center will be installed here in plugins. You will find this in here. So it will have a normal, script kind of. So that will actually configure so your VM accordingly to actually set it up. So most likely you are enabling. So because Windows Admin Center requires 6061 port, so that when you actually enable it, this extension, what does it do? Inside the guest OS, it will actually ensure that 6061 that port is enabled in a firewall if its firewall is enabled. So those kind of stuff it does in the under the hood. And not only, I mean, there are multiple extensions that you see. So if you click here, you have a semantic acronis backup extension. These are actually executable files. You can install them. And Chef, Azure pipelines. There are a lot of other extensions provided by third party also are available here. NVIDIA and a lot of things. DSC, PowerShell DSC. And and that is how it looks like. And availability set, fault domain, update domain will show up here. Then configuration is fine. Auto shutdown is something you can see it here. Bastion is something, this is where you see the Bastion stuff. If you want to connect to, I think our Bastion is ready. So let's try to connect to it. See. A blocker is preventing, please allow pop-up sentry. So this is blocking. Directly opens in a browser. Okay, right now, uh, probably maybe username password I gave wrong, but let me check. This guy disconnected, but this guy connected. So here you go. So this is how it, directly in a browser you will be able to access the VM. So that's the thing. We have seen Bastion also. And guest OS updates, this is where you manage them. If you want to go with the automatic update management, you have to install. This is a separate suite. We will cover this in a monitoring section. Uh, I mean, all you have to do is directly go there and click on this. You'll have some log analytics workspace installed in your subscription and one automation account created for you. So this will actually, okay, for this lab, I'll try to create it directly. While the VM, sorry. This is actually in progress, it seems. So let's wait for that to complete. You'll see the progress here. And then what else we have? Inventory, these are all you can ignore. Run as a command is another important one. So this is where you basically will run a couple of predefined scripts. Let's say you want to change your port number. Or what's the port? So here, set your RDP port number. Ideal port number, you know that it is 3389. Let's say you want to change that to 33890 to make it more secure. So simply I'm changing it to 33890 now. If you run this, you will lose the RDP connection because your RDP port will automatically change once it executes successful. Your RDP port will change, and you will not be able to. If you try to take normal RDP, so you'll not be able to take RDP. So once, let's say if RDP port changes, what are the things that you need to consider? I'll show you those as well. And once, let's wait for this to finish. In the meantime, I will show you another commands. So here you have, if you have some script that needs to be run, you can directly copy paste the script here and run it. It does execute in the backend. And this is something network level authentication, the NLA. So we used to see a lot of issues with NLA sometimes with the RDP. So you want to do, if you want to disable it for temporary basis, you can do disable Windows update directly. You can simply click here and directly run. So it has already script that is embedded here. It will take care of that. And enable admin account. If you want to enable your admin account, you will follow this EMS, remote PS, enabling Windows update, IP list, IP configuration. If you want to list IP config, it does show the IP configuration. What is the IP that is assigned inside this? So all this information is directly available within Azure portal, not without actually connecting to Azure VM. That is a important thing to note. So directly you have these predefined scripts. You simply run those scripts and get the information required. So that's the reason you have a separate PowerShell script actually, which actually where it is giving option for you to run your own script if you have something different from you. So now our RDP port is changed. So let's say, see, my connection is gone, forcibly closed. Why it is closed? Because when the RDP port is changed, what things that you need to consider is, first you need to here this is showing the IP address 10.1.24. This is my IP address. Let's say my RDP port is changed. What things that you need to do is, you have to go to networking. I'm not sure whether do you remember that we enabled one RDP port that is with 3389. So since we enabled only for 3389, it will only allow if the port is 3389, but actual port is now we have changed. So then what we have to do? We have to go with a custom port. Do we have an option for custom port? 1 second. We should have an option. Yeah, custom is there. So 33890. So you have to allow this 33890. Then you are good to connect to the VM again, because you will be able to, only then it will allow you to connect to it. So that it's basically firewall, right? So you have to allow that particular port. So let's try to reconnect. It may take some time, or see. Let's see. It is still taking time because it will take some time to reflect there. So that is fine. And list RDP settings, RDP certificate, and all other stuff you'll be able to directly get from here with the run command. But there is one important thing. This run commands, all these commands will only work. Let's see, we have run a lot of commands, right? Let's go and see the extensions. Okay, let's see here. So only when this agent status, this thing, only when this agent status is ready, you will have those run commands working. So if this agent status is not ready, that run command doesn't work. This is mandatory. If this agent status, which is nothing but, so it actually in the backend, that run command, this agent will be used to run those commands. This agent is actually created by, as I told you, right? Whenever a VM is built on top of Azure, this agent will be installed. So this needs to be ready to utilize those features. Not only those run commands, but also extensions. The agent itself is unready, your commands won't help. So for that, I'll show you what exactly I'm referring as well. I think let me reinitiate it. Where do we have Bastion? Yeah, this is where we have. I think it is still taking time. I have created this rule. So you can even check the connectivity. So you have changed the port, but if you want to change the connectivity, I think the problem might be it is using direct port. That could also be a reason, because we need to configure it probably using Bastion sessions. So this is where you see sessions. There is one session, it says I deleted it. There is one strange thing now. I need to focus. Okay, so let's see what response we'll get out of this. If you want to RDP to the same VM, what we can do, simply see, let's say if you go to connect RDP, here you have to select 33890. Then download the file. Your file will open. When the file is opened, you will see something like this. Yeah, I mean, automatically it will have that configuration that is required to connect to it. So your VM is connected. So I'll try to show you. So when we have tried a run command, right? Are you seeing this run command windows? and this is actually referring to monitoring service, monitoring things. Let's go and see services.msc. What is the agent service that I am referring? Windows Azure agent something. So this is the guest agent I was referring. Let's say if I stop this guest agent, and if I disable it completely and go back, try to connect, try to install any extension. Basically, let's try some extensions and also try some commands, run commands. So some performance diagram, something, anything as such. Okay, these are all require some stuff. It is difficult to install something like this. But what we can do, we'll try to run some run commands. Let's see what happens. So I want to check IP configuration. Let's run it. Let's see whether we'll get an update or not. Hmm. And run commands is something. Yeah, I'm also waiting for this result because I some doubt regarding this, whether I'm sure that this should fail, but let's see. So that is another aspect. So while that is going on, I will show you a couple of other things. So then if as we scroll down, run command is something we have covered. So this is completely monitoring sections where you see metrics related to your VM. So if you type a CPU, you will find CPU percentage and other stuff of your VM. So this is where you see metrics, most of all different types of metrics available here. And let's say if you want to see the memory usage, you don't have a metric available here. For that, you have to use additional logging. That additional logging, you need to enable it from here. So if you enable it here from here, you'll get performance counters, logs, crash temps, all other stuff will be collected directly. All you have to do is simply, so it will store all the data in a storage account. So the moment you click enable, it does enable all those. And this is another aspect, that is log analytics. This we will cover in a later modules. We have separate module for monitoring purpose. Connection monitor classic workbooks is something you can ignore. So this is a template which is actually showing complete your virtual machine configuration in a template format. And resource health is another important thing where it does show your resource health at this moment. So in case, let's say, if any issue happened in the back end or any physical hardware failure happened, so you should come here and check regarding the hardware failure, any issue details. And boot diagnostics will give you a screenshot of your VM at any moment. In Azure, we don't have any concept of as such console like VMware console, Hyper-V console. All we have, like in a physical server console, all we have is a screenshot. At any moment, if you want to know that what exactly is my VM status, is it stuck in the boot? Is it in a BSOD? So if you have those kinds of questions or doubts in your mind, so you have to come here and check the screenshot. And performance, this is actually will be used to troubleshoot performance issues. And this is where you do a reset. So let's say you forgot your password, and if you want to do a reset your password, you can either reset your password, existing username password, or else you can also create a new user also. Let's try to create a new user. Let's see what happens. your ideally it should not be this long. It is still in progress. Okay, we'll let it run for a few more minutes and then see. But this one should throw an error again. So if your agent is actually not active, not ready, if agent is disabled or like this, then your reset password won't work. Run command, reset password, extensions, those are all will depend on your guest agent. Guest agent will actually help those things to complete. So that is another aspect. So while this is also in progress, I will take another tab and I will explain one more thing. So here we have an option called redeploy and reapply. So when you do a redeploy, what happens is your VM will be redeployed. Means your VM will be deployed, sent, migrated to another VM, created from another VM or migrated from another VM. So right, let's say your VM is sitting on some X hardware. So if you want to migrate, you feel that okay, my hardware, I'm seeing that my hardware is not doing well. So I feel like if I go for a different hardware, that would really help. If you have something in your mind like that, so Microsoft is providing an option for you, this redeploy option. You can simply redeploy option, do a redeploy. It will actually change the backend hardware. The VM will be migrated to another hardware, but you will expect to see some errors. Sorry, not errors, downtime. So because this redeploy operation will require downtime, and reapply is something like if your VM is in failed state, then we do a reapply that will actually reprovision, rerun the provisioning and help to solve the VM state. Reapply is just only uh, kind of a we are reapplying the virtual machine state. This is actually this operation will only will run VM provisioning and help solve the VM state failed state. I mean, if ideally when this will happen is when you're creating a VM, if that VM actually failed during the creation process, we will go for this reapply option. So it will try to reprovision again. And finally, we have this serial console option. This serial console option is something is useful to directly troubleshoot the, let's say your VM is stuck in boot and you have confirmed that from this boot diagnostic screenshot, but you want to troubleshoot further. How do you troubleshoot further? You want to perform some action plan or you want to run some commands. Then what do you do? So in that case, first of all, let me change this to some custom account. It's actually pointing to custom account. I need some custom storage account to point here. So this one's still going on. I think they will still go on, and this will fail after 90 minutes. Okay, 90 minutes is the timeout time. So any extension or anything, Azure will allow them to run for 90 minutes. Within 90 minutes, if they finish it, it's well and good. If they don't finish, Azure will immediately back out plan. It will go back. It will throw a timeout error, and it will go back to previous stage. Is it saved? Still saving. That's fine. So okay, I'm not able to explain this here. So let me take another session. So here, let's go bottom serial console. We are checking in this tab. Let's see connection troubleshoot. This is where it will actually explain. Let's say this is my public IP address, my this machine address, and if I'm not able to hard DP to this VM, so you have this option like you can actually check the connectivity whether RDP. Let's see where is RDP. Yeah, this is where RDP. So let's see you have option to check the connection of your RDP from here. With this will actually do some tests. It will check what are the devices that are in middle, whether they are actually allowing your connection or not. So this is a simple way of connecting, simple way of troubleshooting your connection issue, RDP connection issue. Because these are all you will get while you're working. So you will get all these errors. So this is like if you know all these details, most likely you'll be able to deal most of the stuffs like troubleshooting stuff. So let this run, and this is also still going on. Things are very slow. It's fine. So this one, I think it doesn't really work because I mean, by now we should get some response. Because why we have not got response is because of this guest agent. So to make that happen again, you have to set it to automatic, then start it. Then everything will go as normal. Boot diagnostic is also taking time. So that is, and finally, if you're not able to troubleshoot something here, finally you go to support request and you submit a request. That's I think we have covered pretty much around Windows VM. We will also see a Linux VM stuff. Let's try to spin up a Linux VM to save time, because we need to cover a couple more topics as well. So to create a Linux VM, all you have to do is simply come here and select your resource group, give some name and region. Choose anything that you need. I'm choosing Red Hat. Uh, if you want to select the availability set, right? So you have option like this, and you select. Yeah, it is not selecting because of the reason your availability. The OS itself is unsupported OS. Let me see. Why is it not selecting the availability set? Am I choosing any different sizes of the VM? Ideally, it should actually show the availability set. Probably. Okay. So in that case, what we have to do, go to availability set directly. Search for availability set. Go here. Oh, our availability set, have I not created it? I think I have created, right? I think maybe I have not created it. That's why we don't have it. So otherwise it would have shown here. So probably I have not created. So I'm removing it again. So let's choose a Red Hat for now. Spot I have discussed already. Here you have two options, whether you want to go with SSH public key, private and public key pair setup, or you want to directly go with the password. So either way is fine. So if you're going with public key, so there will be one key generated for you. How actually it looks like is you can give some key. So so you select this port. Everything else remains usual, like same as yeah, everything else remains same as the Windows VM. So you won't do much different in this case. Only the port will differ 22, and other thing is SH. Either you want to go with the password or a key pair setup. So what happens is the moment the validation is completed, the moment you click on create, it will actually throw you something like this: download private key, create a resource. So we are downloading a private key. It is downloaded. Now you can go ahead and return to create. So it will create the deployment. Your VM will be created. So this Linux also will have same features as of Windows. Whatever I have covered, each and everything, monitoring or run as a command, everything. So run as a command doesn't actually use run as a command. You will not see much features because run as a command mostly will actually depend on a PowerShell. So your Linux will not have a PowerShell, right? So you won't see those commands, but extensions and other stuff will remain same there. So where are we in this front? It is still going on, and this is successful. So while since this is successful, let's go here and come to serial console. This is what I want to show you, right? So in serial console, it does show you a serial console. If you're aware of, I mean, you ideally, if your VM is not booting up, from where you check is you directly go in a on premises. You directly go where do you go is you'll go to console in a VMware console or Hyper-V console or a physical hardware console, and you'll see what is the status of the VM. Here, same thing you can check from a boot diagnostic. But there in on-premises, you will be able to see, and also you'll be able to take some actions. If you do, let's say if you want to do some manual crash or something like that, you can do it. But in Azure, how do you do it? So you can do the same thing from this serial console. So this actually how actually it operates is, let's say this operates in a channel formats. Let's say if you don't know something, first of all, do the question mark. It does give you channels and stuff. I want to use channels, question mark. Sorry, I think I'm using different command. Yeah. So it works like this. So these channels, first of all, if you want to open a command prompt, simply type command cmd, enter. This will create one channel. This channel, you need to switch to this channel, channel ch switch si. And then where is this channel one, right? Yeah. So you're actually entering into a command prompt of your VM without actually logging into it. Sorry. So you're entering into a command prompt of your machine. So now we have entered into a command prompt of it. I think it is closed. It is not entered for some reason. Now again, new channel has been created. Switch. What is the command that we need to use? Si, switch to channel. Then use one. So this is a command prompt. If you type ipconfig, you'll get your IP. Sorry. Anything, if you want to troubleshoot something here, so directly you have your command prompt. Even when your whatever say when your diagnostics is failing, something like that, your VM is not booting, you're not able to RDP to the VM because of some reason. In that case, if you want to perform some action plan, maybe do a restart of service, something like that, you actually perform from here. And if you want to do a manual crash, that is something is possible from here. This is send NMI. We call it as a non-maskable interrupt. This is physical hardware. If you are experienced into physical hardware, you will have this future NMI where if you initiate it, your VM will be crashed. So this is something we can use it to crash it. But before we use it, there are some things registry changes that we need to make in a guest OS. That is kind of advanced level. So where you really don't get into a situation like this. I mean, if you're in a situation like this, you'll definitely reach out to Microsoft or your support team. So don't worry about that. So this says the connectivity is denied because the port itself is a different port because we don't have any port any connection for that. So in that case, if you give 90, if you touch the connection, it will actually allow. So that's another aspect of it. And so this reset is successful only after we started the service, but otherwise it wouldn't have been successful. And at the same time, run command also was successful only after we started the command. That's all about this. This is something we have not yet connected, is it? So let's try this one. So this is, it says it's network connectivity is allowed because we have some rule in place already for this port number. That's the reason it is allowed. This is not connecting because I think Bastion uses default port, I believe, 3389. So for us to change that port to connect to it, basically. So yeah, that is kind of again another troubleshooting stuff. So our VM, Red Hat VM is created. So let's go to our Red Hat VM and see. So simply we'll try to connect to the Red Hat VM. That's all we do. Because all this stuff I've already covered, so you'll not have much any other difference. You'll have same stuff for the same VM, uh, except this run command. Let's see what do we have in run command. Only these two you'll have. Here you'll have a shell script where you'll, if you want, you can run shells command. You'll have if config, so where you can just get the if config IP config information. That's all you'll have here. So you don't have much scope here. And so while this is running, let's go to our Linux VM, try to connect to it. Virtual machines and Linux VM. Let's try to connect to it. So we can try to connect to it using RDP. So in RDP, it looks like this. You'll get something like this. So how you want to, first if you want, you can install Putty. I already have Putty in my thing. So let's try to use Putty only to connect to it. So first, what do? So you'll give your IP address. Where do we have the IP address? Simply you take your public IP from here. So everywhere here you have this copy thing. So directly you'll be able to copy. So give your public IP, and where is your auth? I think somewhere, I don't remember. I think 1 second. I think I'm looking. Yeah, sorry. Something I remembered, but where is this option? Not this, not these options. We should have somewhere where we have an option I've used also. I think this is the one. I think I'm overlooking at it. So go to downloads. We might have our uh, key download. Okay, I don't have it. Where I have downloaded it? Is it today's date? No, it's not today's date. What is the download file location of mine? Let's go and check. It's in downloads only. Then why does it doesn't show? This user, I mean, it is okay. It is actually saying PEM. Why is it saying PEM? Okay, let's try and see. It should be private key ideally. I think it doesn't support this way. I'm not sure why we have this PEM generated for us. Here you can see if config is created, but I need to check. I think we cannot get that private key again. So that is something you will get only when you are creating it. But instead, what we can do here, we can try to do a reset of password or a reset of configuration, something like public key. Also, you can do a reset. So this public key, if you want to define something else, you can define it. So what we can do in our case, you can use partition, and you can generate your own public key. So let's say you want to generate your own public key. People said that if you click multiple clicks here, it will be faster. I don't know the reason even now, but actually it is true. Usually it will take some time. Yeah, it is pretty fast. So this public key you pick and you will give it here. Then you give the username. Okay. Then directly go for it. Try to update it. In the meantime, you save your private key with you. Save. Yeah. So save this private key. Next demo private key, and also safe side if you want to be safe side. Save your public key also. Anyways, I'm going to delete them, but just okay. So this is how it is taking. It will take some time to actually do this reset stuff. I think it has done already. So let's try to connect now. Let's use a putty and try to connect to it. Go to auth. Where is the documents? Sorry, I have to give the address. You can get the IP address from here. And you log in as Azure user. Support authentication for public key. Okay, with mic. There seems to be a problem with this, but we need to check on it. This will take some another troubleshooting session. So probably what we can try in this case, if you want to go with a simple way, I mean there are a couple of ways you can follow approach. One thing you can do if you want to get access, you can simply reset a password, set some username and password. Okay, that is possible. Use some user ID, cloud train or something like that. Give some password also. This in the meantime, you will be able to connect to the VM using a username password. So that will actually work fine. Once you log into the VM, you can do your further troubleshooting in a guest OS that requires a Linux expertise and other stuff. So that's the way that you can approach. Yep. So with this, we have pretty much covered Windows and Linux VMs completely. We have a couple of things in the slides that I need to discuss with you guys. So let's go back to slides. So we have covered until here. I'm seeing what else do we have? Okay, so we do not have much, only a few things. That's okay, great. So let's go to next slide. So what we have is scaling. So let's say you created one VM with eight 2 vCPUs, 8 GB RAM, but all of a sudden your requirement has changed. So you got some additional requirement where you need to upsize the VM. So in that case, you have two options. One is a vertical scaling, other one is horizontal scaling. Vertical scaling is nothing but, let's say you have a VM today of 2 GB, 2 vCPU and 8 GB. Tomorrow, if you want to increase, you can actually resize that VM to 4 vCPU 16 GB. Still, if this is not sufficient, you can again resize to 8 vCPUs 32 GB, something like that. So you can resize the VM. So during this resize process, you're actually your VM will be restarted, because when you are doing changing a CPU memory configuration, your VM will be restarted. So whereas in a horizontal scaling, the same VM, you will have it as the same. So instead of actually resizing the same VM, you actually will have a multiply this VM. You'll have another VM, similar VM. So that actually 2 plus 2, 2 CPUs, and then 4 plus 4, 8 GB. I mean 8 plus 8, 16 GB RAM you'll get. Similarly, you'll spin up another, you'll add another VM here. So that will actually add another, again, same resources. But only thing here is the difference is that, so here in this process, you don't have any downtime, basically. There won't be any downtime. But here in this process, you will have a downtime. That is important thing to note. But whereas here in this case, you'll have a single software assurance, like single software license. I think software license also doesn't matter much, because software license basically works with the CPU cores. So if you have only 2 CPU cores, I think 2 plus 2, 4 CPU cores, same licenses, how many ever licenses that you apply here, same number of licenses that you apply here as well. So in that case, horizontal scaling is a better solution that you can go for, because it doesn't require a reboot, basically, because most of the times in a production environment, you might have to add additional capacity. So again, if you get a downtime, that is actually you're going to lose some business there. How are we going to achieve that? So we can actually achieve that with a scale sets. There's something called scale set, VMSs, virtual machine scale set, that will actually create a bunch of VMSs, multiple VMSs at a time. So and this VMSs actually scale set deploys set of identical VMs, one thing, and no pre-provisioning of VMs is required. You don't have to do any pre-provisioning; they will be on ready directly. And as demand goes up, these VMs can actually be added. As demands goes down, they can be removed, and the process can be manual. Either this addition of VMs or removal of VMs can be manual, or if you want to automate, it can be automated also, and it can be a combination of both also. Both the things, all these three things possible. And implementing scale set. How do we implement scale sets? The scale set concept I will show you again in a demonstration. And auto scaling also I will show you how actually it can auto scale. And implementing scale sets, yes, we'll show that. Extensions, I'm seeing what else extensions that they've covered. This we are pretty much good. Let's cover those stuff now. So VMSs. So if you just search for VMSs, virtual machine scale set, you'll get a VMSs. So all you have to do, create a VMSs, choose a resource group. Let's go with the same resource group, and region is something our choice. This time I want to go in a Southeast Asia. You can create basic. Sorry, this is actually VMS's name you have to give here. VMS's demo 01 something like that. Let's give. And region, let's choose Singapore, Southeast Asia. Availability zones, here you'll have options like which availability zone you want to create stuff. Availability zones, same thing. So in Southeast Asia, there are 3 availability zones. Like in a same city, you have 3 data centers. In which data center you want to create is something if you can select here. If you select one, it will specifically predominantly go and create in one first data center. You're specifically saying, hey, I want to sit in only one. I don't want to go to anywhere else. And if you don't check anything, so by default it will go and sit somewhere else, either 1, 2, or 3, anywhere, but you don't know about that. That's the only difference. And orchestration is something uniform, flexible. So this is something, orchestration is nothing but how you manage your VMS's instances. That's all about it. So this orchestration you will see for Kubernetes clusters, like basically container orchestration, we call it as Kubernetes does. So managing VMSs. And the image, which image you want to go for is what you can select here. Spot instance is same as I informed you earlier. And the VM size we have selected, and the username you can give. Mhm. Why this password? This doesn't match. And disks are, I mean, this disk like VM only, you select the disk, the type of, most of the things remain same. So you create this VNet and then subnet. Scaling. So this is important thing. So how many initial instance counts that you need? So here instance count is nothing but VMS's instances. So VMS's is a scale set. The scale set consists of multiple VMS's instances. Here it is asking you how many instances you want to create initially. So let's go with 2 initially, then I'll show you scale in, scale out policy. Here it is saying scaling policy. Do you want to go with manual or automatic? Here it's manual. If I choose automatic, it will ask you a rule. Minimum number, how much minimum you want to keep? Do you want to go with the one? One is a minimum, right? That you have. So you can choose whatever the minimum that you want to choose. So if you select one, in auto scaling, the minimum it can go only one. So beyond that, obviously there is no other number, right? So it doesn't go. Let's say if you select some 2 here, the minimum it can go is 2. Beyond 2 it cannot go. Like it won't go to 1. So minimum number of instances that it always maintains is 2. And if you set maximum some 5, so maximum instances it will set 5 always, like it cannot go beyond that. So, and how does scale out and scale in works? Scale out works like, let's say you have two instances initially. If the average CPU usage of these 2 instances, let's say average of one instance is somewhere around 80 vcp 80 percentage, average 80 percentage CPU percentage, and the second instance it is somewhere around 75 percentage. So average together somewhere around 77.5, something like that, right? If that average is above this CPU threshold, like 75 percentage, if the average usage is above this 75 percentage for about 10 minutes, that is when your number of instance will be increased by 1. This 2 will become 3. You will get one instance created for you, instance added for you. And the same time, the scaling. If the average CPU threshold is less than 25%, let's say you added one VM and it became 3. After becoming 3, of course, your average usage will be distributed across 3 VMs, right? Let's say your VM1 has some around 80 VCP, 80 percentage, VM2 75. And VM3 just it has pinned up now, it may have some 30 percentage, right? You'll take average of these 3, and the average will come somewhere around 50 percentage maybe. And if the average slowly reduces and goes down because of the less load, if it comes less than 25 percentage, then it doesn't wait for any movement here. The moment it comes, it will immediately decrease by 1. Here it will wait for 10 minutes before it increases, but here it doesn't wait. You might ask a question, why? Because again, that's customer friendly. Like, again, it is to it is to save some cost to customer. Because if we are waiting for 10 minutes, customer is being billed for 10 minutes, right? So with the third VM, right? So if the moment it comes, it reaches 25 percentage, it almost confirms that situation is normal, so it will immediately go ahead and delete it. So that's all about it. upgrade, manual, automatic, boot diagnostic, health. So here, this is another thing. So if you are actually want to go enable beyond 100 instances in your VMSs, if you want to go beyond 100, you have to check this. Why you have to check this? Because they in backend in data center there will be different set of clusters, right? Some clusters will have capacity for only less than 100 VMS instances. Some clusters are very big; they can actually accommodate 1,000 VMs also. So if you choose beyond 100, in the backend, they will actually allocate this VMSs to a bigger cluster where you can actually create multiple VMs there. Let's say if you uncheck this, they will actually allocate your VMSs to some small cluster where you will maximum of 100 VMS instance it will support. So that is how it works. Since I am not going to use 100 anyways, so I'll go with this. So this spreading also, you can see how actually your VMSs should spread across the environment, because so we are not dealing with one VMSs, right? Multiple VMSs will be there. So how actually you want to spread these VMS across the data center? So let's say one VMS sitting there, one VMS instance sitting somewhere else, and another one somewhere else. So depends how we want to. So here we are choosing a fixed spreading. I mean, each one should be like nearby. So one another should actually be nearby, and that's about it. So if you know, I mean, do you know how Flipkart, Amazon they work? Because they actually, when they get a big billion days, they will get a huge what do you say, load, big billion days, or in a Christmas season in Amazon US. So they will actually use VMSs in the backend. And I mean, I'm not sure, but the ideal way of managing situation like that is a VMSs. You will have auto scaling enabled. The moment you get a higher load, it will keep on adding additional VMS instances. And after the big billion days, when the load is drastically reducing, those VMS instances will be automatically deleted, will be reduces as well. So that is how it works. Okay, so let me stop talking for a while and try to listen from you guys. Do you guys have any doubts, questions, concerns so far? Whatever has been delivered. Hello, are you guys there? Or else I'm only speaking to myself. Okay, you are there. Great. Any doubts? Any questions that you have?
Yeah. Bro, so we did get a virtual virtual mission. So can we take administration?
Mahesh, I can't hear your voice. Your voice is actually breaking. Can you ping in chat maybe? Oh, it is same with no, it's still breaking, Mahesh. Nandakishore and Sai Kiran, are you able to hear him? Are you able to hear Mahesh?
No.
Okay. Then it's a problem with Mahesh only.
Yes.
Mahesh, you can check your audio settings, and if you still can't, I mean, maybe if you cannot communicate that way, you can just ping your question in chat. I will answer to everyone. Yeah. And in the meantime, Sai and Nandakishore, do you have any other doubts, questions, queries on this front?
Not for me, Uday. If anything, I'll just go through. If I come across any other questions, I'll let you know. Okay. We can check with you, right? Next session or something.
Yes, of course. So next Saturday, we'll meet again. So any doubts that you have, you can just make a note. We'll meet there, and first we'll clarify your doubts. The way I asked today, same way I will ask on Saturday also. If you have any doubts,
Okay.
then we'll first clarify your doubts, and then we'll move. We'll go to next module.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have our VMSs ready, and this VMSs looks like this. If you go to instances, it pretty much looks like a VM only. All the options that you have that you got in VM, so you'll have similar options here also. But the difference would be like this is a VMSs, a main VMSs. But if you go to instances, this is where your instance is located. So each of these are instances one VM. So if you open this VM, this is separate VM altogether. So actually this VM, and you will not have VMSs. The way VMSs works is little different from a normal VM. So you'll have a VMSS setup, and inside a VMSS you'll have instances of VMSS. Each instance is separate instance, and you'll not have much features, much options for you to connect or do something on a VMSS instance side. Whereas in a VMSS side, let's say you want to do some, let's say you want to reset password, okay, or create some password. So what do? Ideally, you create a password on a VMSS, then you actually upgrade and re-image it. I'll show you what I was talking about. So let's say I've reset my password on a VMSS main image. Now what I should do for this to replicate to the my instances is, yeah, it is done. So if you go to instances, you will see something like, if you refresh, you'll see something like this. It was yes earlier, latest model. Now it is no, because you actually made some change on password, but these instances are not yet replicated, not yet upgraded to that stage. So in that case, what you have to do, click on these two instances. First, you can upgrade, but in a password case, you have to do a re-image. Let's upgrade this latest model thing will go away. Upgrade is something, it is actually fetching the configuration. It is upgrading these VMS instance. Now that particular user name password should actually come here, but username password is something doesn't come up automatically. So if there's some extension, some additional things, so it will come up. So in this case, we have to do a re-image. So re-image, what does re-image do is, so in VMSs there will be one master image, like one second, where are we? Yeah, here we are. Yeah, so in VMSs there will be one master image, and these are all what do you say, normal instances, VMS instances. Sorry. So master image will be used to create all these VMS instances. So the password change that we have made, we have actually changed the password here, because we cannot change the password directly here, because if that is the case, each and every person will change the password. Let's say I change password here, but how will I replicate to this to another VMs? No, right? I cannot, because VMSs should be identical, because most of the times you will have some load balancer in place. You'll have a load balancer ahead, because let's look at a flip code only. Let's say you change the password here, and you actually refresh the browser, and you got a next time you got a different VMS instance website. I mean website from different instance. Then that website, that VMS has different older password. Then are you able to? Then how can you able to? I mean that is not a situation should not be like that, right? So that is the reason you can't do a reset password. You can't make configuration changes here. You can only do changes here. Once you are done with this, the first thing based on the configuration, if it's not a guest OS layer like minute thing, if it's something a extension, something a major one, you simply go ahead and do upgrade. If it's a guest OS level, like changing a username, password, something like that, then you go for reimage. Reimage, what does reimage do? It will take this image again and reimage these VMS instances with that image. So that way, whatever you have in this image will come to all these instances. That's how it will work. Let's see. I think it is completed. Now these VMS instances will have that latest password that we had. So how can we confirm is something? You can go to CLI console and try to connect to it. That is one way around. Yeah, multiple ways that you can follow to connect to it. But this is how, on a high overview, VMSS works. Any other questions? Most like it is actually a VM itself, but this VMSs have a identical multiple VM setup. So I mean, not exactly a VM. It is also a compute resource, which means which also provides websites and stuff. But this here it is actually giving the auto scaling option, like horizontal scaling. So while when I say auto scaling, scaling is something we'll see. I think we have already seen the scaling. Here you have two options. Whether you want to go with the manual scaling or auto scaling. The auto scaling, it does continues to check the CPU usage of those VMs, and it will automatically add additional instance and remove it. And in manual scaling, you simply define how many VMs you want, starting from you'll have a maximum of 100 here, because we have unchecked there, right? So if you would have checked there, maximum you'll see 1000 here. So that's how it works. Any doubts on this front? I see the question from Mahesh. Can we enable RDP and connect from our VM to Azure VM using IP and DNS? Yes, we can, because this is my VM only. This is not Azure VM. Whatever you are seeing from where I'm connecting, this is actually my VM. I mean, this is another VM, but this is again, you can consider it as a different VM. This is a, okay, let's say this is Azure VM, but this Azure VM I'm connecting from my local laptop. That is again Azure VM, right? So it is possible, but you have to have a public IP address. If you see this name, this is actually a DNS. I configure DNS. I'm actually accessing via DNS. You can either access via DNS. You can either access via IP address, public IP address. Either ways works. Any other questions, queries, doubts? Mahesh, did I answer your question?
Yes. When we create a VM, can you hear me?
Yes, still breaking, but okay, little better compared to
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So this is all about today's session. Hope you guys liked it. So yeah. So if you have any other doubts in future, feel free to let me know. I've already shown a lot of things, but still, if you want to do some practice or do some kind of a lab, so I have some homework for you guys, where you can actually, I've done all these things, but if you guys also want to do these things when from as a learning perspective or practice perspective, so this is a homework for you. Small architecture, like this is divided into multiple tasks: task 1, task 2, task 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, multiple tasks you have, and couple of components also we have involved in this. These components we need to create one by one. So this might take about 2-3 hours time for you guys to understand and do it. It's kind of a project, small project, I would say, which is related to VMs and VMSs. And also you're seeing some load balancer as well. Don't worry. So you can, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the instructions around this. Let me see if I have the instructions right now in handy. See, my labs will be in a GitHub directly, so you will be able to get them from there itself. So, okay, I think this maybe. Let me look at the. I think it's tech trainer only. Yeah, so this is a lab thing. Yeah. So this is a lab about virtual machines. So this is my repo. So this is my repo. I own this repo. So don't worry. So you can anytime you need something, so you can always access from here. So you have study guide as well here. I think it's deleted probably, but you have labs here. So for each module, I have all the labs that I listed here. So virtual machine, you can find out them by names. You'll see virtual machine, Azure virtual machines. So this is a lab. All tasks, whatever I listed from 1 to 7, all tasks will have a detailed instructions, what you can do and all the stuff. All this stuff I have already done, but if you, I mean, see, it's something like this. I teach everything, but I also will give an option for you to explore further. Whether you want to explore or whether you do not want to explore, I will definitely leave it to you. But even if you don't explore, I will cover everything, whatever I in this lab as well. So if you want to try it on yourself, so this is one thing I'm suggesting. So this my URL I'll share in chat right away. So in this URL, you'll have all my labs. where is this? Yeah, so this is where you find all my labs and you can make use of them. So as and when we finish, I think Nankishore asked about the documentation stuff as well, right? So
Yes.
we'll cover that documentation as well. I mean, recording is something I will share it right away. And documentation also we'll discuss with you guys, because I will also talk about other stuff about payment stuff, right? So we'll discuss about that, and then today end of the day I will share the recordings, and then we'll also share the course content, because if I share the manual, probably you will read it in parallel instead of sharing it at the end of the training. So we'll discuss on that aspect, and probably I'll call you separately, and from there we'll take it further. So any other questions, concerns, anything else?